Welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on the cylinder head for the KA. All right, welcome to the workbench. It's always this clean, believe it or not. What I'm gonna start with is pulling all the buckets out. Buckets right on top of the overhead valve. I'll show that closely here in a second. So pull all the buckets out, and then hopefully the valve spring compressor that I have will work to pull the keepers out of here. Then we can pull each valve out and look it over. And then I do want to lap the valves back to the seat. So I'll show all those procedures, but first we'll take the buckets out. This is the exhaust side. You can tell because of the way that it is and because the exhaust studs are right here. Here's the intake side. The bucket is what rides right on top of the valve. So you should be able to just magnet the bucket out. Anyway, my plan is take off all of these and I will label them exhaust and what cylinder they came off of. Got all the buckets out. These are all the exhaust buckets. These are all the intake buckets. And now you can see the tops of the valves in here. Okay, so here is first intake valve. And actually, quickly looking at these, other than just a little bit of rust on them here, if we clean that rust off of the back of the valve, which I believe only happened because it was sitting, there's just a tad bit of pitting on the valve sealing surface, which I think will be taken care of with some wire wheeling, or I'm sorry, some valve lapping. So I'll show real quick how I go about using this valve spring compressor to get this all apart, and then I will zip to the end when I've got them all out. The way that this valve spring compressor works is this is the end here that actually depresses the valve, and what that allows is the retainer and the spring to be pushed beyond the bottom of the keeper, which are those two little, you can see they're two little half moon or split ring style. So I'll show you what it looks like when this thing is all the way depressed. So this is an off engine or cylinder head off valve spring tool. Take the slotted open end of the valve spring compressor and put it right around the top of the valve stem. And then on the other side, there's just a stop. That goes up against the compression chamber side of the valve, the actual face of the valve. Once you've got this thing kind of lined up, you pull the lever in here, like this. And it kind of snaps in. And I'll zoom in on this if I can. So here you can see the keepers are now released because the valve spring is depressed. So with a magnet, you come in here and grab one keeper, wiggle it around a little, get the other keeper. You may have to kind of adjust the tool a little bit. There it is. Now that the retainers have been removed, we can undo this valve spring tool. Actually, you can probably take some tension off of it on this side and then undo it. And now the retainer, which sits on top of the spring, comes out, and there's the spring. So it goes spring, retainer, and then the keepers fit in here. And then push the valve out. And voila, there's your intake valve. You can see this one's a little bit rusty, like I said, mainly probably just from sitting around. But the actual sealing surfaces look pretty good to me. So I think these are a great candidate for a simple lapping. I am going to blaze through the rest, ripping all these valves out, and we'll pick back up when we're ready to wire wheel the backs of the valves, and then who knows if we'll get time to lap the valves tonight. Probably not, but I will have this disassembled. All right, cylinder head is basically bare. So the encouraging thing that I'm seeing is there's just a little bit of pitting on all these valve seats, but nothing that I would deem too concerning. I mean, you guys saw what we did with the Hornet engine, so this looks pretty darn good. The only valves that have some rust on them here, I think that's just from condensation. So a quick trip through the wire wheel will make that happen. or make that go away. I think that's it for me for tonight. I think tomorrow or something, maybe I'll pull off all the valve seals. They'll look to be the same to me. Probably soak this thing in some sort of cleaner to get as much of the oil residue off and all the other crap off of here. Clean this up. Basically a poor man's hot tank. So, see you tomorrow. I'm gonna put this in my parts washer. And by a parts washer, I mean a 5-gallon bucket full of warm water, a little bit of Dawn dish soap, and a little bit of Simple Green. Didn't have time to get this thing to the machine shop. Don't think I will anyway. Or you guys can chastise me in the comments for that if you want, I don't care. And we'll set this thing on rinse cycle. Oh, probably want to mix it up just a little bit. Back out here again today. The cylinder head just got back from the hot tank. I got this cleaned about as good as I'm gonna clean it. What I want to do before I start reassembling this thing, I actually want to replace the valve stem seals down here. I have removed one of them. Where did I put that guy? Where did you go? Oh, here. Okay, so this is what the valve stem seal looks like on a KA. So this is like a little steel hat, and then the actual rubber seal with the little tension ring is at the top. So while I have the head disassembled and all the springs out and everything, I'm gonna replace all of these. They came in the gasket kit that's in this box. I'm gonna pull one of these out and show you how I'm gonna do it. These are just pressed on, or did they just slip right over the valve guide right there, which is that little raised area at the bottom of the well here. With the needle nose pliers, you can just grab these and pop them right off the top. I'll show you. See the valve guide down here? Sorry, the valve stem seal right here. I got my needle nose on the outside, or that steel cap or shield, whatever you want to call it. Give her a good squeeze, and we're just gonna kind of rock her back and forth. And we're just gonna rock her back and forth. And there you go, valve stem seal. I am going to blow all that out. There's just a little bit of residual water in here from cleaning it. And I will put all the valve seals in here real quick, put you on time lapse for that. All the valve seals are removed. Head is stripped. But I forgot that I wanted to actually lap the valves back to the seats on these. Just flip that head over there, yeah. So the seats actually don't look too bad. They're a little bit dirty on the exhaust side. The intake side actually looks pretty good. If you guys have watched any roadkill, they do this all the time. It's kind of like a standard at-home engine rebuild procedure. In an effort not to make this video super long, I'm gonna kind of move a little bit faster. What we're gonna do now is lap all the valves in the cylinder head, then we're gonna put new valve seals in, and then finally, hopefully today, we're going to make a long block. I'm gonna tell you the steps of this process, and then I think we're just gonna time lapse through it. If you guys want more detail on this, mention that in the comments and I can make a video just for that. This is the #1 exhaust valve, at least the one I call #1, this one here, on cylinder 1. All I have done so far with this valve is quickly wire wheel the crap off of the back of the valve and very lightly wire wheel the face. In order to lap the valve, we are going to smear some valve grinding compound right here, and you can buy this at any parts store. There's coarse and fine. We're going to smear some valve grinding compound on the sealing surface of the valve right here. Then we're going to install the valve into the head, like so. And then on the back side, we're going to use a drill with a piece of hose slipped over the end of the valve, and we are going to rotate that valve and gently push this valve up against the head while it's turning so that it can mate or lap the valve to the seat. When you're done, clean everything off of there, get all the grit out of there, and you should have a nice freshly ground valve seat and valve sealing surface that should match up perfectly. I'm gonna do one of these really fast and come back and show you what it looks like finished. Then we're gonna run through them all. First valve here, just got done lapping this one. Maybe you can tell from before, it's kind of hard because these don't look too bad, but here is the freshly lapped valve seat. Here's the new lapped valve. I may have one more go at this one, but that's essentially the process. So now this valve should have a fresh freshly mated surface to seal against. We are actually going to divide and conquer here. So Sam is going to take all of the valves and run them through the wire wheel, get those prepped, and then as they get finished, I'm gonna lap them in here. We're gonna time lapse this whole thing because don't want this video to be too long. All the valves have been lapped, cylinder head's clean, valves are clean. We're gonna put the new valve stem seals in, and then we're gonna reassemble this head. I'll show you how to do this. What I found is a 10mm socket. This is an impact one. Seems to allow the seal to drop right inside, but then where you're gonna be hammering is right on the outside of that metal ring. So all we're gonna do is essentially shove the seal up in this socket, put it right over that head, or that valve guide, and essentially drive the valve stem seal right down until it stops. That's it. You don't have to hammer like crazy on these. They're only, there isn't a ton of resistance, so that's it. Once they stop, they stop. I'm gonna run all the rest of them on here, and then we're gonna slap this head back together. Okay, viewers, we got all of the valves lapped, everything's cleaned up, put all the intake valves back in, and one of the exhaust valves so far, but I am out of time. I have to get this video edited and stuff. Basically, we're gonna skip the end of this assembly for this time. I just have to put the last bit of the exhaust valves on, and then the cylinder head is ready to go on the block, which is over there under a bag. So next week, we'll get finished with the engine completely, get started prepping to get it hooked up to the transmission, and maybe even get it in the car.